funny thing that you should know here is that a lot of words in Spanish, it's not always the case, but the majority, if you see an H in the middle of those words, it's because they borrowed the sound from Arabic. Have you ever found yourself wondering, why are words what they are? Hi guys, this is Katy from Spanish 55, your go-to girl for all things Spanish language and culture. And today, as I said at the beginning of this video, I was wondering, why are some words in Spanish what they are? Why don't we have other words for the things we know? Well, today I chose to do this video explaining some of the most interesting things that I found out about, and I like to share it with you. Maybe you can have some more vocabulary added into your list. And if that's the case, please do tell me so on the comments below. One of my favorite words in Spanish is chocolate, chocolate, which comes from xocolotl. And this is in Nahuatl. Yes, so the Aztecs were way ahead of the game compared to other countries at the time.
Chocolate.
But you know what? The interesting part is that chocolate was a name referring to a beverage only reserved for special occasions, as it was considered to be the drink of the gods. Next up comes a really funny word. As you may know, how do you say wife in Spanish? Esposa. However, we do have another meaning for esposa in Spanish, and that is handcuff. As crazy as it may seem, back in the old days, marriage was seen as a form of captivity.
¿Te quieres casar conmigo?
So yes, esposa is when you basically have your hands tied and you can do anything. As you may know, Spanish is a really old language, as many other languages around the globe actually. However, throughout the centuries and its expansion, it has borrowed many other words from different languages, such as the case of Arabic words. And now let's look at the word for pillow in Spanish. Pillow in Spanish is almohada, which is actually borrowed from Arabic almohada. And this basically refers to the cushion. One funny thing that you should know here is that a lot of words in Spanish, it's not always the case, but the majority, if you see an H in the middle of those words, it's because they borrowed the sound from Arabic. Now let's look at another Arabic word that has been borrowed into Spanish. Cucup, which means cucaracha. And probably you already know what cucaracha means, right? Because there's a really famous song that has cucaracha on it. You might have already heard about it. However, cucup refers to woodlouse or beetle. So it kind of makes sense, I guess, that cucaracha is a little creature that goes roaming around your house. Now let's move on from those despicable little creatures to a more desirable bug, which is mariposa. That means butterfly. And mariposa comes from Latin. As you may remember, Spanish comes from Latin, as many other languages around the world do. However, mariposa might be because of mare, which means mat, sea, and posare, which means posar, and that is to pose. So a bug that poses on the sea, around the sea. However, some other sources also state that it might be a possibility that the first part, Mari, comes from the name Maria, which is a really common name, and posar, which means to pose. So it's basically a girl named Maria which poses? Well, either way, that's a really interesting source. And now that we're talking about the Latin language, let's look into another word that comes from Latin. The word for disaster in Spanish is desastre. And this comes from this, which is mal, or something that's bad in Latin, and astro, which means estrella, which means a star. So desastre literally means a bad star alignment. Now let's speed the things up a bit with the next word, santiamén. This is a quirky term that means in no time in Spanish. And this term comes from Latin sanctum amen, which basically means holy amen. So when you're trying to speed things up, santiamén, you're basically evoking a little bit of divine intervention. Alright, so let's get down to business with the word trabajar.
Pues he decidido volver a trabajar.
Trabajar is a really common verb that you may already know, and which also comes from Latin. And the Latin is tripalium. Tripalium was a form of torture. So you might not really want to forget this one, right? Now, to close our Latin chapter, here I present you usted.
Usted es feo.
Usted is a polite way to say you. And it basically comes from vuestra merced, which basically means your mercy. So, of course, it's a more polite way and a more formal way to address someone. And last but not least, let's close the list with something that you may have in your kitchen. And that is patata, the word for potato. This humble veggie actually has a really interesting history. It actually comes from the Taino word batata, which referred to a type of sweet potato. When the Spanish encountered this fruit in the Americas, they mistook it for a familiar potato that they had back home, and that's why they started calling it patata. However, the Tainos had another word for this root, which was papa. So, as you may know, and it will all depend on the country you're in and the kind of Spanish it is spoken in that country, but both words are accepted, either patata or papa, to refer to a potato. Well, there you have it, amigos, the strange and fascinating origin of 10 Spanish words that probably you didn't even know about. I hope this language journey was quite fascinating and interesting for you as it was for me. And remember, if you're itching to learn more about Spanish culture and language, don't forget to check out Spanish55.com, where you can find your own private tutor to learn Spanish at your own pace. Remember that if you like this video and you would like to see more content like this, check out our YouTube channel, like and subscribe, and also leave in the comments if you know any other origin of Spanish words, and it might be really interesting. Without further ado, guys, I will let you go. I hope you will have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and buena suerte!